Good evening, friends. As you all are aware, a two-day conference on no money for terror begins in Delhi tomorrow. I welcome you all to this press briefing as a curtain raiser for that conference. There are 75 representatives of 75 countries and multilateral bodies who would be attending this conference. And the objective behind this conference is to build an integrated approach to countering terrorism that was initiated at earlier conferences held in 2018, 2019. To talk with you, we have Sri Dinkar Gupta, Director General NIA, with us. I welcome you to this conference, sir. And there would be an opening remarks by DG NIA, and that would be followed by question answer. So I now request DG to proceed with his briefing. Thank you.
So as Principal DG just mentioned, this is the third edition of No Money for Terror conference. The first such conference was held in April of 2018 in France. France took the lead under President Macron. In fact, it was his initiative that this conference was conceived and held for the first time in April of 18. And the second edition took place of this conference was in Melbourne, Australia. That was November. This was exactly 3 years before. And after that, in that conference in Australia, our Indian delegation was led by Honorable Minister of State for Home, Mr. Nityanand Rai, and he had led the Indian delegation. And over there, India had offered to host this conference, the next third conference in India. And unfortunately, because of the COVID pandemic, that conference couldn't take place. And in 2021, and he had led the Indian delegation. And over there, India had offered to host this conference, the next third conference in India. And unfortunately, because of the COVID pandemic, that conference couldn't take place. And in 2021, and so now we are here in November 22 when this conference is being held. And this is the third edition. It is terror and terror activities and terror acts across the world. And so this is a very important topic for India. In fact, I would like to mention here, Principal DG already mentioned that about 75 countries are participating. As of now, the updated figures that we have, 72 countries are coming from other foreign countries are participating. India would be the 73rd. And apart from that, there are 15 multilateral international organizations, including Interpol, FATF, and Europol, and all the connected multilateral organizations who are stakeholders in this terror financing and in the of the financial sector. So non-profit organizations, they'll also be joining us. So all told, it's 78 countries and multilateral organizations. So this conference it's a two-day conference, as has just been mentioned. The Honorable Prime Minister of India, he will be inaugurating the conference at the inaugural session. He'll be chairing and he'll be delivering the inaugural presidential address at the conference tomorrow at 9:30. After this inaugural address by the Honorable Prime Minister, we have this conference has been divided into 4 sessions on different topics. The first session on trends in terrorist financing is going to be chaired by the Honorable Home Minister and the Cooperation Minister. He will be delivering his address in this. This is a very important topic, and he'll be chairing this session, and then he'll be delivering his address at this on this topic. This is tomorrow in the forenoon, 11 o'clock, 11:30 actually, and then 11 o'clock. And then in the afternoon, we have another session on formal and informal ways um, of terror financing, which is going to be chaired by Minister of State for Finance, for Revenue. This is use of official and unofficial channels in financing of terrorism. So this is the second session, and the third, so this is tomorrow on the 18th. And on the 19th, we have two more sessions. The session 3 of the conference is on emerging technologies and terrorist financing. And this session will be chaired by Minister of State for Home, Mr. Nityanand Raiji, and this is 9:30 on the 19th. And this will talk of technologies. There's a lot of new technologies, new financing channels have come up since the last conference in 2019. And, digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and all that. So that's a very, very crucial topic and subject. And then the fourth session, session 4 of the conference, which is about international cooperation, the need to strengthen international cooperation to tackle terrorism financing. So that session is being chaired by the Honorable External Affairs Minister at 19th afternoon. And the concluding session is going to be chaired by the Honorable Home Minister and the Cooperation Minister again, and where he is going to be delivering his concluding address and talking about reviewing the proceedings of the conference, and then he'll be talking about the subject. That is 19th evening, and that is the concluding part of the conference. All major countries are participating in this conference from all continents. And in fact, this conference is fits in with two other conferences which took place almost back to back in India. One is the Interpol conference, the Interpol General Assembly, which took place recently, and followed by the United Nations Counter-Terrorism Committee meeting in Mumbai and in New Delhi, and this is the third in the series in that sense. So the topic of international terrorism and terrorism financing is very significant and crucial for India. And so that is the reason why there's so much focus being brought on this by the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Home Minister and the Cooperation Minister. And so this conference is being held as a result of the efforts of these efforts. So thank you very much for joining us here. And
There are 69.
Sir, I'm Rahul from ET. My question is related to since this conference is taking place almost after a gap of 2 years. So in these 2 years, there have been two important developments. One in Afghanistan, Taliban taking over Afghanistan. The second has been recently delisting of Pakistan. So how much it is a challenge for India and Indian agencies, given the fact that large quantity of drugs have been seized on the rivers and on the border and the international border. So will you be taking this up in the upcoming conference?
It's as you know that it's almost about 73 countries and 15 multilateral organizations are participating. And it's a very wide range of topics are going to be covered. And as the structuring of the conference is such, where almost all countries are going to be getting an opportunity to speak. So almost all topics, whether it is drugs or because all of these they eventually converge into they have narco-terrorism cases we've seen in India, and in fact there are quite a few cases which the NIA is also investigating. There are other state police forces like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, etc., who also investigating these cases of narco-terrorism where proceeds of drugs are funneled into carrying out terrorist acts and activities. So pretty much I think it's a very wide-ranging conference. Of course, the focus of the conference is international terrorist financing. But a whole lot of these issues, I'm sure, will be discussed and addressed. All these issues will be addressed in this conference.
16.
Good evening, sir. Arunima from CNN News 18. So kindly confirm if Pakistan and China have confirmed their participation, and if so, will it be a ministerial level delegation from these two countries?
Pakistan is not participating in this conference. And I think as so far, China also, we don't have I think the confirmations which are still coming in, and I think I'll need to check on whether China is going to be participating in this. No, they're not participating in this conference.
67.
सर मेरा नाम मनीष शुक्ला है, मैं जी न्यूज़ से हूँ। ये जो कॉन्फ्रेंस है सर ऐसे समय हो रही है जब हम लगातार देख रहे हैं कि जो खालिस्तानी जो पंजाब में जो एलिमेंट्स हैं उनको बाहर के देशों से फंडिंग हो रही है। ये कॉन्फ्रेंस भी इसी टॉपिक पर है। कश्मीर में भी हम देख रहे हैं कि लगातार जो टेररिस्ट ग्रुप हैं, भले NIA ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया लेकिन उन्होंने नए मीडियम ढूंढ लिए हैं फंडिंग के। क्या ये जो मुद्दा है इस बारे में भी कोई बात होगी? और आप चूँकि पर्सनली देखते हैं कई केसेस को, ये कितना बड़ा कंसर्न है?
देखिए, ये कंसर्न है, बिल्कुल कंसर्न है। चाहे हम किसी भी थिएटर की बात करें, तो चाहे पंजाब की बात हो, कश्मीर की बात हो, तो इसीलिए टेररिस्ट फाइनेंसिंग जो है एक बहुत बड़ा अहम मुद्दा है, क्रिटिकल मुद्दा है। और इसके बारे में हमारी चर्चा होगी। इसके जो ट्रेडिशनल मेथड्स हैं जो फाइनेंसिंग के थे, चाहे हवाला था, दूसरी चीज़ें थी, और हमारे पास इन चीज़ों का एविडेंस भी है कि पैसा बाहर से आया, कोई MTSS चैनल से आया, कोई वेस्टर्न यूनियन से आया, मनीग्राम से आया, कुछ किसी के खाते में पैसा डाल दिया गया ताकि और वहाँ से पैसा उठा लिया गया। इसके प्रमाण मिले हैं। तफ्तीश जो केसेस की हुई है, NIA ने भी की है, दूसरे स्टेट पुलिस फोर्सेस ने भी की है। तो इन सब मुद्दों पे जो नए तरह के तरीके जो एजाज हो रहे हैं, हुए हैं, और प्लस जो ट्रेडिशनल चैनल्स हैं, कैश कोरियर हैं, क्राउड फंडिंग है, इन सभी नए तरीक़ों पे चर्चा होगी इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में।
13.
हेलो, मेरा नाम प्रशांत है, न्यूज़ 24 से। अभी जैसे कि आपने बताया कि अफ़गानिस्तान और पाकिस्तान पार्टिसिपेट नहीं कर रहे हैं और चाइना अभी कंफर्मेशन नहीं है। हम इंडिया का कंसर्न इन्हीं दो कंट्री से सबसे ज़्यादा है, खासकर पाकिस्तान से टेररिज्म रिलेटेड चीज़ों को लेके। उनके एब्सेंस में आपकी ये पूरी कॉन्फ्रेंस कितनी महत्वपूर्ण होगी? और जो लोग इस कंट्री में पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे, क्या पाकिस्तान को लेकर कोई विशेष चर्चा करने की योजना है आपका? जितने पाक ऑपरेटेड टेररिज्म इंडिया में हो रहे हैं सीमा पार से, उस पर लेकर कुछ?
देखिए, इसमें कोई विशेष देश के बारे में चर्चा कोई रखी नहीं गई है, लेकिन सब देश जो हैं उनके प्रतिनिधि जो आएंगे, करीब 20 से ऊपर इसमें मिनिस्टर्स पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं। तो क्योंकि सबको मौका मिल रहा है, तो सभी जो भी इश्यूज़ हैं, ज्वलंत इश्यूज़ हैं, जहाँ से भी थ्रेट आ रही है, जहाँ से भी पैसा आ रहा है, जहाँ से भी खतरा है आतंकवाद का, सो उसके बारे में चर्चा बिल्कुल होगी और खुले उससे होगी। इस पे कोई लिमिटेशंस नहीं है, कोई भी देश कुछ भी कह सकता है, और सभी जो देश और मल्टीलैटरल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं 78 जो हैं, उनको पूरा बोलने का अधिकार है। और सब मुझे क्योंकि काफ़ी 2 दिन की कॉन्फ्रेंस है और सभी मुद्दे इसमें कवर किए जाएंगे।
11.
So myself Gautam from ETV Bharat. Sir, you are organizing this conference at a time when security agencies are claiming that terrorism in India is decreasing. Do you think that terror financing is increasing globally, especially in India, and if so, what is the quantity, sir?
I mean, this is what you mentioned about the reduction in terrorism in India, and it's not a question of claim. I mean, these are hard facts. there is no doubt that terrorist activity, terrorist acts, there has been quite a huge reduction over the last, maybe one can say 6 to 8 years. There has been a huge reduction in both, whether in all areas, all theaters of conflict and violent extremism, whether it is Kashmir, whether it is Punjab, whether it is left-wing extremism in India, Northeast, etc. So in all theaters there has been a reduction. It's a matter of fact. So it's not a question of claim or anything. So, but of course, this is a battle which has to be fought, and it's something which one can't wish it away. So we have to strengthen our infrastructure, our mechanisms, our frameworks to fight this menace of international global terrorism and terrorism financing also. So this is a battle which goes on, and that's what we have seen, and we have to be ready. We are in a very, we are located in the way we are located in the world. So this is a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, and for which we have to be prepared. And this conference has to be seen in the context of our preparations to fight terrorism in India, and get all the countries together and enlist the cooperation of other countries to address this menace.
One last question we'll take.
Good afternoon. I'm Elena from TASS News Agency, from Russian state-run news agency. My first question is, are there any plans on adoption of some final documents after this conference by the participants? As I represent Russian news agency, can you say a few words on the cooperation between India and Russia in fighting with the finance of terrorism? Thank you.
Okay, can you paraphrase this? This is the cooperation between Russia and India in...
She perhaps wants to know that
will there be... this issue in fighting finance of terrorism. Cooperation between India and Russia, how do you assess this cooperation between my country and India?
Hi.
What matter?
We have Secretary West also with us. So please.
So I think this question has come at the right time. Let me introduce my colleague, Mr. Sanjay Verma, who is Secretary West. And in fact, he's been shoulder to shoulder with us this conference, in organizing this conference. We've got full support from the NIA. And let me, actually he was stuck in another engagement, and that's why he just got delayed. And maybe this question, I think he's the best man to take this question.
Well, thank you, Gupta ji. Namaskar. Sorry, I just finished a seminar on higher education. After finishing consultations with the Russians on cooperation in the UN setup. All right, your question was India-Russia cooperation in countering financing of terrorism. There are several tracks on which we do that. We have a joint working group with Russia on terrorism, on counterterrorism. So that is definitely an area where we work together. We exchange notes, etc. Also in the FATF format, till Russia was a member, right now that membership is suspended, or at least it's limited to a large extent. So in the FATF process also we have worked with Russia on common objectives.
My first question was, will be any adoption of final document, final communique after this after this conference, No Money for Terror? I mean, final communique, I don't know which participants will sign on the results of this conference? No money for terror.
What exactly she wants to know is, do we propose
Or you will
to
just,
adopt some
speak and-
resolution or some,
Resolution or something.
some declaration?
There at the end of the conference in Australia in 19, there was a chair statement, and there was some resolution in France as well. And so it will depend upon how the deliberations go, whether there'll be a chair statement or something, some statement or resolution, something, some outcomes and takeaways, etc. So something will come out of this, and so that's still in the making, and yeah.
The Director General has answered. It will be a chair statement, will be issued in the concluding session of the conference on the 18th.
Hello. So I am Akhilesh Suman from Sansad TV. We already have a FATF, Financial Action Task Force, and now there is a no money for terror. So just can you, let us understand the difference between the two, that what is the format like, how it came into being, and whether there will be a declaration like G20 declaration or something like that.
You spoke about the FATF. So these are complementary bodies, and FATF, of course, came up in 1899, and they are a body of about 36 countries and three multilateral organizations. While this is a much bigger forum, and its remit, this thing is much wider. FATF carries out evaluations, mutual evaluations, etc. So they have a different system, and here is much wider. It's capacity building, training, legislative, other frameworks, bringing them in tune with, align them with, stopping of terrorist financing and all that. So when in Paris the first conference took place, there also the resolution which was passed was to reinforce FATF type bodies and their regional bodies also. The idea was that FATF also needs strengthening, it needs resources. So NMFT, this platform, is a complementary kind of a platform. So both need to work together, and I think my colleague Sanjay.
Well, the other difference is that the NMFT process is ministerial. FATF is not ministerial, it's largely official and is membership based. NMFT, the number of countries participating at the ministerial level is increasing by the year, and it is a consultative process. And even FATF somewhere began as a process like this before it became formalized. But FATF also has money laundering as a vertical. But in our conference, I think it's terrorism related only. The focus is as a counter-terrorism measure.
सर अगेन मनीष शुक्ला फ्रॉम जी न्यूज़. अभी आपने रशिया और इंडिया के जो टेरर को लेकर के जो कॉपरेशन है उस पर बात की. कुछ दिनों पहले रशिया में ISIS का एक बॉम्बर पकड़ा गया था जो इंडिया में आकर के अटैक करने वाला था. उसको लेकर के टेरर के अगर हम देख रहे हैं कॉपरेशन, उसमें अब तक क्या डेवलपमेंट हुआ है? क्या भारत सरकार ने उस टेररिस्ट को इंट्रोगेट करने के लिए या उसके इंट्रोगेशन के लिए वहाँ कोई टीम भेजने का फैसला किया, या रशिया की तरफ से इंडिया को कोई इस बारे में लेकर के कोई जानकारी दी गई है?
ये आई थिंक एक आज हमारा फोकस जो आज की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस का है, ये सिर्फ ये जो हमारी कॉन्फ्रेंस कल सुबह हो रही है उसी पे आई थिंक सीमित रखें तो अच्छा होगा. ये सेपरेटली वी कैन.
42.
Sir, this is Vijeta from The Hindu. So one of the agenda items for this conference is weak regulations of social media. Could you please elaborate on it? Because India is a democracy. Are we pushing for censorship of free speech? What is the significance of this agenda?
You know, as far as social media fits into this conference agenda, because social media platforms are being used for raising of finances, funding, they act as crowdfunding platforms, and we do have evidence of this kind of a thing happening. So it's growing. And so there is, I think, a consensus, I wouldn't say building up, but then of course this is an issue which needs to be discussed, because such forums, such platforms are being used for raising of finances, which are ultimately being used for terrorist purposes.
Thank you, friends. No, you have asked, you have already asked. No. So one last question, 22.
सर मैं ये जानना चाह रहा था, मैं कुणाल हूँ सर, जैसे कि क्या आप इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में जो हम लोग का नो मनी टेरर कॉन्फ्रेंस हो रहा है उसमें क्या पाकिस्तान को बुलाया गया था या पाकिस्तान नहीं आ रहा है? अगर बुलाया गया था, पाकिस्तान नहीं आ रहा है, तो आप इसको किस नज़रिए से देखते हैं? चूँकि टेरर फंडिंग तो पाकिस्तान बहुत करता है। हाँ, दूसरी बात ये सर कि ऐसा देखने भी आया है, सुनने भी आया है, जो कुछ पकड़े गए हैं टेस्ट लोग, कि कनाडा, जर्मनी वगैरह से खालिस्तानों की फंडिंग हो रही है, ऐसा चर्चा है। तो इस दोनों मुद्दे को चाहिए, क्या पाकिस्तान आ रहा है या आना भाग गया यहाँ से पीठ दिखा करके टेरर फंडिंग मामले में? इसको किस तरह से देख रहे हैं आप सर इसका?
I think our response is that China has been invited. China has been invited.
Thank you very much for attending this conference. I also thank Secretary West, Sanjay